There's always been the term, customer obsessed on the brand side. We want to be customer obsessed. But what we really need to think about is that creators are even 10 times more audience obsessed, right? They wake up every day, look at their analytics, and are trying to figure out how to keep and engage the audience that they have and grow it, right? And the knowledge that they have of their audience can't be underestimated, and it really can be leveraged by brands in so many ways, even product development.
You're listening to Retail Remix, your inside access to candid conversations with the people shaping retail's future. Here's your host, Alicia Esposito.
Welcome, retail lovers. And boy, oh boy, do I have a great conversation lined up for you today. It's only appropriate since this is our last new episode, at least for the time being. And if you know anything about the show or about me as a journalist and analyst, you know I love talking about the convergence of content and commerce. In fact, you've probably heard a few episodes featuring me geeking out about this very topic on the show. Well, we're going at it again, and this time we're adding context into the mix. And that's because we're digging into the creator economy. Now, you've seen some articles from us about how the space is growing and evolving, especially with the rise of new content formats, new platforms, and even virtual influencers. Now, we're not going to get into those new players, but what we are going to dig into today is some new research from LTK and Northwestern University. We're going to explore not just how investments in creator marketing are changing, but also new tactics, new channels, and the new ways that creators are working with brands, the requirements for success, how everyone's assessing these new partnerships. It's a very meaty and nuanced conversation because we're not just talking about strategy here. We're talking about measurement, KPI alignment, accountability, and all of the different ways that you can elevate and boost the content that you're investing in. So whether you're new to this whole creator marketing thing or you're really looking for ways to grow and scale it, and most of all, optimize your investments, this conversation has some great data to validate your approach, but also some general tips and guidance to ensure your success. Listen in. Hi, everyone, and welcome to this week's Retail Remix. We have a great discussion lined up focused on some new research about the creator economy. For anyone that knows me and my areas of coverage, you know this is an area I love to explore, and I'm super excited to have two folks on the line with me to really dig in and explore not just the research itself, but what the implications are for all of you, the brands and retailers listening. Gentlemen, how about we start off with some intros? Please introduce yourselves and share a little bit about the work you do. Rod, how about we start with you?
Sure. Rodney Mason, and I'm head of marketing for the brand partnerships of LTK. LTK is the first and largest creator platform in the world, and we'll jump into it a little bit more, but we work with major retailers and brands, helping them bring creators to life through all their different forms of marketing communication.
Fabulous. Frank?
Yes, I'm Frank Dudley. I'm a professor at Northwestern University, which is pretty much one of the top universities for marketing in the world. I teach at the graduate level, several courses there, marketing strategy, digital marketing innovation, and a new course, influencer marketing, which is super popular. I'll be teaching it during the winter quarter, actually, starting in January. I also run the Strategic Marketing Institute, where we do a lot of research on things like influencer marketing and social commerce, and I'm Associate Director of the Retail Analytics Council at Northwestern University, which partnered with LTK on this study.
Yeah, and obviously this is very much the foundation for our conversation. So I think maybe that's a good place to start because this research has been done a few times, right? So can you share, Rodney, this may be an ideal question for you and Frank Frank, if you want to jump in and share anything else. I would love for you to share the initial vision for this research when you and your team decided to start doing it. Like, were there any initial goals or priorities in mind?
Yeah, so great question. We are a three-sided marketplace. So we actually service creators and help them be more effective. We work with major brands, as I mentioned, and are really a marketing resource for them. And then we have consumers. We have 40 million shoppers on our platform. So we have a lot of different interests that we're always managing. We do a lot of research. What we're so excited about in partnering with Northwestern as the leading authority in branding, really from any university, is their ability to tap into the C-level suite of marketers and finding out how they're investing, not just in creator, but across the enterprise and what their goals are. And what we've been really pleasantly surprised with is what we've been seeing in the market is creator is way at the top of that list. It's just scaling. So we wanted to dig in really deeply, look at how they were planning, what they were looking for, what they want to bring to market to make sure that we're prepared to help them with our creators and address consumers in every way possible. Nobody can do this better than Northwestern. So we're just super thrilled that we're able to have this partnership with them.
Love it. And obviously, both social media and the creator economy itself have evolved significantly, not just over the past 5 years, but like the past year. I mean, it's pretty incredible, like really digging into all of the news headlines and even seeing our coverage and like the new capabilities, the new partnerships, and even the new features available to creators. How has your approach to the research evolved along with this evolution? Like, I'm sure there are a few core things you want to dig into year over year, but like, how do you ensure that you're always staying in tune with what's new or what's next in the sector?
I can tackle
ahead,
that. One of the benefits of partnering with a company like LTK is the vast amount of data that they sit on, and obviously the insights that can be gleaned from that data that actually identify new topics, new areas that we may want to explore in the research. So it's a nice combination of a huge database of consumers and influencers and creators tied with our ability to talk to the C-suite. We just actually did a qualitative study on retail media networks, talking to the CMOs of a lot of the largest, retailers in the US. So we're always trying to integrate big, robust data sets with other types of research that we do at Northwestern to really generate the cutting edge insights that the industry wants. And LTK is a perfect partner for doing this in creator marketing space.
Oh, that's great. So I would love to dig into some of the key findings or results from this research. And at least in my opinion, I think the big headline or one of the big headlines is that more than 50% of brands plan to increase their budget on creators in 2025. This is obviously great news. As we've heard, budgets are always being squeezed and marketers are feeling more pressure to prove the value and impact of their investments. But I'm curious, is how brands are investing? Like, is that changing at all? I guess I'm trying to understand, like, of course, more money's going in, which is great. But are there any distinct changes or shifts in terms of how brands are thinking about and actually investing in creators?
Yeah. So speaking to the research, absolutely. And I can give a few examples there, as can Frank, but also just daily from our clients. We've just seen this giant evolution, I'd say, in the last 2.5 to 3 years, where a creator used to be, you would talk to the people that manage the social media and maybe the PR and the affiliate. And now it's from the study, the top groups and marketing departments have grown exponentially that work with creator. And the top group is media and branding. So they've just moved across that enterprise. And not to steal Frank's thunder, but Frank will share with you some numbers, just from the study. But really specifically, you've just seen the emergence of CTV, like connected TV and regular television, creators being in that, and UGC across user-generated content across branded websites. And really pretty much every touch point that you can think about in the marketing tactic, creators are now involved and engaged. And that's just been a huge shift.
Yeah, and I would just validate that really what you're seeing, and it kind of mirrors the increase in spend in creator marketing sort of overall. I mean, 25% of our respondents are going to be spending 40% of their digital marketing budget in this space, I mean, that's just a data point that you can't avoid looking at, right? It's just become such a powerful channel. Rodney pointed out a couple of reasons. I mean, creators just really have built-in trust with their audience. And that's always something that advertisers have grappled, with associating with their brand. And so the creator really connects the consumer with the brand within the paradigm of trust at a much greater degree than, many of the other marketing activities can do. So that's sort of one thing. The other thing, which we'll get into as we talk about hopefully like boosting and various things like that, is just integration, right? We're seeing really a much more interest by brands in integrating media with the creator, with the brand and its value proposition to really create a much more powerful level of engagement with customers and prospects. And so that we really focused a lot on that type of integration. Again, powered by AI and a number of other things we might get into. But that integration is becoming key. And LTK has become a great expert at kind of helping brands manage that integration across an integrated set of media channels, et cetera, integration within retail media networks. So it's really an exciting time, but I think integration is really the mantra of the day, and we're seeing greater spend. So obviously brand, media on the organizational side are becoming much more involved, as Rodney mentioned.
Great points. I think that trend and reality around integration is very, very key, because we are seeing the impact of these creator campaigns or collaborations and how they can really be applied and amplified across all of these different channels. Like CTV was brought up, and I think that's a fantastic example of the new ways these partnerships can show up contextually for consumers. But Frank, you mentioned the term of the day, or the year rather, which is AI. And I'd love for us to explore that, get it out of the way, right? Really explore what those opportunities are for using AI as it relates to use cases for the marketing and brand teams, right? Because it's all about working smarter, being more effective, and I'm sure optimizing those investments, right? Because you don't want this to be one-time or one-sided partnerships. You really want to get the most value out of that. So can we dig a little bit deeper into what the evolution of AI and, AI-powered solutions means for helping brands get the most bang for their buck, so to speak?
Yeah, so I'll give the big picture, and then Rodney can delve into what's happening sort of day to day, because he sees it through the platform. But big picture, brands have figured out that they're best to invest in AI with, to a large extent, third-party platform providers, whether it's like Salesforce with Einstein, et cetera, because of the cost involved and the innovation involved in kind of keeping it up to date. So voila, in comes LTK, which is a third-party platform that really can provide AI to brands at a much more cost-effective, more efficient, and much more impactful way than brands and retailers could even do on their own. But Rodney, hopefully you can kind of take it from there and give some more granular examples.
Yeah, absolutely. So, the fuel for AI is data. And because we were the first and largest creator platform, we have 14 years of data. We have 40 million shoppers on our platform. We can see everything. So we literally have all that data. Then we work with the largest retail media networks, and our clients will share some data with us. So how we're unique is that we have AI all across everything that we're doing. If we're working with our creators, we're working with brands, or even our consumers, we're continuously optimizing every touch point to make sure that we have intelligent decisioning always going on. And even I'd say in the last 12 months, we've seen just from creator selection alone, using our AI tools, when those were in place, we're selecting 60% of the creators we're selecting haven't worked with a brand before, and they're performing exceptionally well. So just from that selection process, it's huge. And we have self-service platforms and we have full service platforms. If we're doing full service, we're using those tools ourselves on behalf of our clients. But that's enabled us to give our clients 360 reporting. We can show them all of their creators, we call it their leaderboard. They can see all their creators, how they're performing at any given time, what how they're performing best, which ones are best for the right campaign. So we have those kinds of tools. And then from an optimization perspective, from the performance that creators do, we're able to educate and train them and show them the data and insights and even help them with how they're projecting in the marketplace to align with all the social that's out there. And we're using AI to do all of that. And that's because we sit on so much data, we're just able to do that. I will say there's some other areas for brands we saw in the research. It said, and I think, Frank, you may not have been as surprised as we were, the number one place that brands are spending their dollars on AI of anything they could do is actually creator. So yeah, that was really surprising. But a lot of it is trying to, they're always looking for the right creators. So that's one way they're doing it. But also from the content creation, because there's a lot of great tools out there. There's Jasper and other tools that people are using now to create content. And we'll see brands pull content together and then say, hey, creators, we're looking for something like this. But the nature of the way creator works, they'll see that content, they'll see the theme, and they'll purpose it in their own ways. But it helps provide more guidance to them than it has in the past. Some brands new to creator, they are like, oh, we're just going to create this stuff and have creators push it out. It doesn't really work that way. It's not just where you just take a TV spot and you put it out across this channel. It's every single point is a one-to-one relationship. But with AI, you can help them communicate more effectively, make sure that they've got all the salience in there and saying it in the way and in a familiar way to a brand. And AI helps empower that.
Right.
Also, the last thing too is let's not forget about the efficiencies and innovation that's driven in terms of just producing content for the creator. There are a number of AI tools that creators are using now to really much more efficiently create, for example, video content, right? Which is becoming more and more of a popular format, right? So there's these AI driven sort of solutions like Opus Clip, where creators can do sort of a long form video and it will use AI to cut that video down into bite-sized chunks that a creator can then share. So just a lot of innovation happening on the creative production side as well. And that ultimately all fuels efficiency and effectiveness of creator marketing for the brand and the retail partners also.
Yeah, that's great. I'm glad we hit the value on both sides, on the side of the brand or retailer, as well as on the side of the creator, because it is a two-way street, so to speak, right? Like it does need to be a mutually beneficial and valuable relationship where both sides are kind of bringing something to the table. And I think my next question maybe relates to that in some capacity, or next two questions rather. And that's around how expectations have evolved on both sides of the aisle, so to speak, in terms of collaboration, creative strategy, and actual tactical execution. It's been interesting to see the discourse around creator marketing and influencer strategy kind of evolve because, to an earlier point, it was very much here's a campaign brief, right? And here are your posts and do the posts on this day and this time for X number of weeks. It seems like it's a lot more fluid and relationship driven now, but I want to start with expectations on the brand side, in terms of how they expect creators will collaborate with them and really what they're going to bring to the table. Because we've brought this up a few times, it is about the power of the relationship the creator has with their audience, but it does need to have impact and it does need to help them meet their goals, right? So is there anything new that's been coming up in these decision-making processes in terms of who they work with, why, and how?
So if you notice, as Rodney mentioned earlier, you're seeing on a management basis, now media and brand, higher level people are getting involved in managing a much bigger portion of the budget and initiative around creator marketing because of the impact it's having, right? And so when I teach influencer marketing, we really try and focus on the fact, and all the brands are starting to realize that, in the beginning of social media, it was like brands, I was like, oh, we need a Facebook page. You know what I mean? We need to get on YouTube. And it was just like, let's just get on there because everybody else is. But then it slowly evolved into a bigger spend, and therefore there needed to be a strategy, right? And so strategies need to map to goals. So what we're seeing is that as more money is being spent on creator marketing, as it's becoming a more critical part, not only in terms of building brand, building audience, but even converting into sales, you're starting to have more formalized strategy and plan around creator marketing where it needs to map to a business goal. And that's what we teach our students is, what is the business goal? So it's not just a brief anymore, to your point earlier. The brief is the first step in the creation of a full-fledged strategic plan that has to fulfill a business goal for the brand.
I was just going to add to that. So I thought that was excellent. But, LTK was founded by Amber Vince Box and Baxter Box, at the time her boyfriend, now husband, and they have 4 children, which are awesome. But she was a personal shopper. And she was a blogger, and people would log on. And when she started blogging, her personal shopper business went away. So Baxter helped her monetize that. So from the very founding of LTK, it's always been trackable, and mostly about trackable sales and earning commissions. That's where it started. Where LTK is today, we have clients in different industries, and this shows up in the Northwestern study. They all have different KPIs. If you're a CPG brand, consumer packaged good brand, and you want to demonstrate how your product's made for a large retailer's loyal customers through their retail media network, you might have KPIs, key performance indices for those creators to deliver earned media value and drive impressions and consideration and engagement. If you're a retailer and you've got a big sale going on, you might tie all of the objectives to sales. But what we're seeing is everything used to be ROAS, and now today, even if you look in the Northwestern study, ROAS is way down the list. People want ROAS, they want return on ROAS, but the majority, that's not how they're measuring these things, because creator does so much more. It's more believable when you compare them traditionally, whether it's in a retail media network or just against conventional ads. We've seen it way outperforms ads because of the believability, like when you talk about click-throughs and conversions. And so that makes it a more efficient spend. And because it's a more efficient spend, you can test and learn. It's the perfect test and learn and scale product. And so you'll see a campaign might start out with certain KPIs and, it meets these. Now let's use it over here in this way and test it in this way. So there really is just a big evolution. And it goes back to what Frank was talking about with media and branding taking over. It's just all the measurements have kind of migrated in any way that you can imagine a marketing department measuring. That's what's being applied to creator.
Yeah, great point. I'm glad you brought up the nuances, Rodney, in terms of not just the business itself and their specific goals, but also like some of the nuances by category. Are there any others that really rise to the top? I mean, this could be from a strategic standpoint, like an execution standpoint. Are there any distinct differences that you've seen as far as creator partnerships and campaigns? I mean, you brought up retail media. I mean, obviously there's that grocery CPG tie-in. So maybe we use that in like fashion as like the other side of the spectrum. Like, are there any big nuances or differences to call out?
Well, one of them, and Rodney might be able to comment on this more in terms of, specifically knowing via the LTK data, but the study shows that the fastest growing, now this does not mean the largest, right? Like beauty, health and wellness, et cetera, but the fastest growing areas in the study are tech and services. So you're starting to see an expansion, right, of creator marketing into other verticals. And maybe Rodney could just comment on that a little bit as to why that might be.
Yeah. So literally in the early days, LTK was fashion and beauty, and we still are definitely. Actually, those two industries have completely different objectives, because most people, if someone's buying certain products in the beauty industry, they'll buy it online. Sometimes they have to do it in person. So consideration is really big there, as opposed to like the fashion industry. A lot of times it's focused heavily on a sale or a specific design. There's definitely awareness, but a lot of more transactional measurement. But if you start looking across, like we work with some of the biggest hotel chains, and there's automotive industry, and we are working a lot in technology and with retailers that have home improvement and categories that a few years ago you would have said, well, they don't have creators for that. I mean, pretty much every industry you can think of has gone to creator because it's efficient and you can test and learn with it. And each of those have their own different types of KPIs.
Yeah, and just remember too, and this is always sort of a fascinating learning for the grad students in the influencer marketing course, is that the niche small creators sometimes drive incredibly high engagement and value for the brand because of their very specific focus and area of expertise. So in some of these other verticals, you're seeing those types of creators really rise to the top because they help fulfill those strategic KPIs and business goals that we mentioned a little while ago.
You both raised some great points. And Rod, I'm so glad you brought up home improvement / DIY as a category, because I distinctly recall the CMO of Lowe's talking about this at Shop Talk Fall, and how targeting millennials and Gen Z, of course, they're in that scroll mode, right? Like they're not always going to a search engine to find information. They're increasingly going to TikTok, Instagram. So those moments where those very specific, knowledgeable creators or passionate creators, right, that can kind of share their experiences, their projects. Like there's one creator I follow, and he's a dad of small kids, and his whole niche is doing DIY projects for his kids, right? It's very targeted, but of course he's found and carved his own special space in that world. So he has some incredible brand partners, and that kind of gives them that edge, I guess you could say, that will lead them to have those better partnerships, because the brands kind of know, okay, this person knows what they're talking about. They're very passionate about it. And we know audiences go to this creator for that. So speaking of that edge, is there anything new that you all are hearing from the creator standpoint in terms of what they're looking for, what they expect from their brand partners? Are they expecting more creative freedom, for instance? I'd love to hear how that side of the table is thinking about things.
Yeah, I'll speak to that just a little bit. AI has really changed the dynamics, and a lot of tools that we build, actually, because it sounds like I'm being boastful, but we're the innovator in the industry. So now we have situations where creators can reach out to brands. They can actually just say, I saw you doing this, I want to do this. And we've created all the tools. We've also created marketplaces where a brand can talk to all of our creators and they can say, we're looking at something like this. What do you think? Or we want your opinions. And it creates this engagement that didn't exist before. It's not like, here's the brief, go find the creator. There's dialogue going on between them even before they're engaged. And we have tools like power gifting that's not about the creator posting anything for you. It's more about them learning about your product so they actually understand it. So you're not just walking up and going, oh, there's this home improvement thing a tool that you could use, and it's just go tell everybody about it. It's like, no, here, try this. Tell us, does this make sense? What would you do with this? And if so, then maybe we can work together. So there's a lot of those kinds of things going on. And then there's also this kind of looming, it's kind of hanging out there. Everybody's like, what's going to happen with live streaming? Because it's huge in Asia and other parts of the world. And we're starting to see that. We're starting to see live streaming in some unique ways in the US. You might see it as very exclusive for just certain people get the inside track on some things that are coming out or get the sneak peek. Certain types of trunk shows or big announcements. You're seeing retailers do it some, but you're also seeing them use creators for it. And we've even had creators do it where they'll do the announcement on behalf of the retailer and it'll break live. And their followers are liking that on some level because they haven't seen them live. They always see them, typically recorded in video, so that you'll see this content and then it will be played back as UGC, user generated content, on the retailer site. And it's really entertaining, and it makes the consumer have a sense of FOMO, like, oh, I missed that live thing. I need to be on the lookout for these things. So it's kind of interesting how that's evolving. It's not about, the always on live streaming where creators are always doing that, although I think some of them will go to that. But it's just another interesting angle that's available and is coming on the market.
Also, I would just add that I think overall brands are starting to realize, as the space is maturing, that it is more beneficial than not to give the creator more creative freedom and relinquishing a little control in order to get to that authenticity and context that only the creator can deliver when they're allowed to do so.
100%. And I feel like that's something that we've been reporting on and talking about for quite a while. So I'm glad that the tides are officially turning and brands are starting to follow suit. I actually saw a session at Advertising Week with your Rich BFF, who I think is amazing. And like she was talking about how building these partnerships, it does need to be a collective discussion, right? Like she knows her audience better than anyone else. So the brand should be looking to her for insight and ideation, not just for like those one-time activations, but what a more holistic and longer-term partnership really does look like, because there are so many opportunities as we think about the broader omnichannel mix, which I think leads to our next topic, which is this idea of media boosting. So your research indicated that media boosting accounts for 30% of brands' total creator marketing budget. For those who don't know, can one of you explain what boosting means in context of creator marketing and, how it ties into this broader conversation around creator strategy that we've been having?
Yeah, I'll touch on it a little bit. So first, what happens is Frank pointed out that these micro creators are, most of the time, they're experts and they're highly, highly effective at what they do. So much so that when you test with them, it does really well. And a brand is like, wow, we would like to scale them. Let's test and see if we put them in front of similar people that are in their audience or some of our customers, how they do. And they'll put some dollars behind it and they'll boost them on the social platforms. So they'll spend some dollars to say, hey, check out this creator. This is cool. And share it outside of the creator's audience. And what they found when they started doing that is it performs really, really well because these people know how to engage audiences. And even if it's not their loyal followers, all of a sudden they're attracting more followers. That has evolved. So what's happened is brands really started boosting. In fact, the study said 30% of the budget is going to media boosting now. Now the budgets are scaling up, so it doesn't mean less is going to the creator. It just means more and more dollars are going to creator. And we did mention the media department's engaged now. So they're taking these dollars typically out what was allocated to digital media ads, and they're putting them behind the creators because they get such high performance. What we've done at LTK that's even further differentiated is when a brand boosts a creator, let's say it's on TikTok or it's on Meta or whatever, that boosted message comes from the brand. So I'm brand ABC and this is a great creator, check out this message. And it looks like it's coming from the brand. When we boost, when LTK boosts with LTK Boost, we actually, because the creators all sit on our platform and run their businesses on our platform and have stores on our platform, we boost from their social handles on their behalf. And so we'll take their campaign and boost it, and it comes from them. So it looks pretty much like they're just out there organically on the platform, which they are. And it's just sharing their message in an even more authentic way. And we're seeing double-digit percentage increases in engagement just from boosting that way. And boosting itself is highly effective, but it's just another way that it works. And then, if you're boosting and you see that engagement on social, all of a sudden you have all these other places when you boost and you test it with audiences that you can take it. You can do it with connected TV. You can run digital ads with them. You can actually move them around on your website, all from the learnings that you get from boosting. I would say one of the best results we've seen from boosting above and beyond just a retailer boosting is through retail media networks. And that's because when you work with a big giant retailer or a small retailer that has a loyalty program, they can take their loyalty data and imagine this. You're a CPG brand, consumer packaged good. You do a demo, you have a creator demo using your product as an ingredient in a recipe, let's say, and you're on social media. All of a sudden, this retailer who knows their most loyal customers who like these types of recipes say, let's use this data and let's boost to them and see what happens. And then when you do that, it's even much further accelerated. So probably a little bit long-winded here, but boosting is super exciting because it takes creator and it helps scale it to very specific audiences.
And I would just add to that, there's always been the term, customer obsessed on the brand side. We want to be customer obsessed.
Yeah.
But what we really need to think about is that creators are even 10 times more audience obsessed, right? They wake up every day, look at their analytics, and are trying to figure out how to keep and engage the audience that they have and grow it, right? And the knowledge that they have of their audience can't be underestimated. And it really can be leveraged by brands in so many ways, even product development, right? Because it's all based on just to be academic for a minute, it's all based on the value exchange that happens between the brand in partnership with the retailer and the customer, right? And that value is determined by how much the brand and the retailer fulfill a need that the customer has. Who knows that need better than a creator who is absolutely obsessed with knowing what those needs are of that audience on a day-to-day basis and being able to share that context, those needs back to the brand and the retail partner? It really just can't be underestimated, the value that they can provide.
Yeah, totally. I mean, you both really accentuated the power and impact of boosting. So 30% of budgets go towards this, which I mentioned earlier. Is this an area to watch? Because I feel like 30% is kind of low, but maybe I'm just jaded. Is this something that brands are slowly testing and they're still like waiting to see the impact? Is this an area to watch?
It will most definitely increase.
Okay.
Yeah. And I would just say, from the study, and Frank could speak to this too, but we saw that creator is actually being spent in 4 additional media besides just traditional creator collaborations. And boosting is in the creator collaboration. What we've seen on our platform and what we've been able to measure, you got another 30% of all creator spend going into other media. So it's really probably in the 60%. It's probably a third.
Got it.
Is how brands are spending. Yeah, but when you speak specifically about boosting, that's a high concentration of media going directly into those creators' handles. So that's actually, a very high concentration.
Okay, understood. So it's kind of a different viewpoint of the data. Got it. So as far as the opportunity or how this particular space within the creator economy is evolving, like Rodney, you mentioned retail media. I mean, the opportunities are very clear. Are there any other new channels or areas worth testing? I think CTV was mentioned. That's kind of exciting, but any particular ones that you think have a lot of opportunity over the next year?
Yeah, for some of your listeners, because they're in the retail industry, they'll be like, oh yeah, we know that.
Right.
But user-generated content is like unbelievable. It's like magical for retailers. And I've seen it firsthand. It works really well when you have creators. And you kind of saw it first with like grocery, but now you're seeing it across everywhere. To have a creator demonstrate on a site, the products that you have, or talk about them or share them embedded in the retail experience, it's like having them in your showroom floor. It's like they're kind of celebrities. They're kind of well known. When I say celebrities, they're respected. Even if people don't follow them, they respect them because they're like, oh, this is a creator. They have got a following. They know what they're talking about. So they're just, and when Frank talks about they know how to deliver that message, having them embedded in your website as user-generated content is extremely powerful. In the same way that it is replacing a lot of digital ads, it can also enhance the content on your site. So I would say that that's like just a massive one. And we're really seeing a lot of growth in that area.
Great points. I always love seeing the different ways that brands are incorporating user-generated content and, creator content into this bigger ecosystem, I guess you could say, of different marketing and advertising touch points. I mean, seeing them in ads and email newsletters, for instance, and so many other opportunities. I mean, it's super fun. Like, it could be me as a content person just geeking out about it, but I don't know. I think it's fun to see actual faces and customers and people who are passionate about the brands. But as we kind of close out our conversation, gentlemen, I mean, of course, we're recording this towards the end of November, actually officially before the start of the holiday shopping season, quote unquote. I guess some would argue maybe not, but officially. And I'm curious, how do you think this holiday season will shake out for creator marketing and the creator economy? Like, are there any creator strategies you've seen or you're starting to see rumblings about that are especially fresh or exciting for the sector?
Rodney, why don't you take that since you're in the trenches with all these brands and retailers right now?
Yeah, so our holiday shopping season starts probably in September. because that's when consumers are shopping. And there's been so many, we work with major retailers and brands. And so there's already been so many massive events around big sales. You've seen them, they've made the news. But I think, it sounds kind of simple, but the wish lists, creators are doing a great job with wish lists, and they're doing it, they're curating them in different ways. And so just getting those out early, because we do a lot of research, we know where consumers are, as do the retailers. So propagating those lists back in August, September, October, having sales on them, because consumers are always looking for, okay, I want this, let me keep an eye out for it. And then, with their LTK shops, when they're creators, they can go, oh, this just went on sale. I posted it. You liked it. Here it is. So you see more of that dynamic going on, where it's a longer tail for the holiday season. And certainly Black Friday, Cyber Monday is going to be massive, but you've got much more intelligent messaging from the creators going to the consumer. So they're showing them things earlier, and all along the way, they're reminding them of them. And then they're curating those things for people to go back to. That's one of the things, that's I wouldn't say a new habit. LTK created it. But the fact that our creators have these stores, so people like what they see, they can like it within the app, on the LTK app on their phone, the shoppers can. And then that's like their Christmas list. They go back, or their holiday list. They can go back and they can find all the things that they've tagged. And they do get alerts. They get messaging and different types of things about those products. So that's just a much more intelligent way versus, oh, I like this, here it is, and it's great for the holiday season, and it's on sale right now. It's really this much more intelligent long tail approach. And that's why brands start working with us on the holiday season, like in August and September, so they can build all that out.
I love that. That's a great way to think about it, that long tail influence or impact. So with that, I would love to close out our conversation by digging a little bit further into 2025 expectations or even predictions. Like, how do you see this space evolving? How are you seeing brands thinking about their strategies? Especially because, to go full circle, we talked about that shift in terms of who owns or who is leading the charge in creator marketing. Is there anything else that you think will rise to the top or will really shape this space moving into the next 12 months?
I think you'll continue to see very powerful and evolving use cases of AI, which we touched upon in the conversation. Has just incredible applications in content, which is really the core of what drives creator marketing. So I think you're just going to see more refined and effective use cases of that over the next year as brands and the retail partners get smarter and have partners like LTK to work with. The other thing I would just mention, and it's kind of related to AI because it helps with this, but is really delivering messaging and content in context. And this is where creators, are really a valuable partner to have. That nuance you brought up, that sort of Home Depot DIY guy, there's a context there, right? Of how to spend time with your kids and teach them something that they think is useful. And that's a profile, right?
Mm-hmm.
That certain influencers and creators reach, right? And so that level of context, I think, is going to go into overdrive over the next couple of years because context is everything, right? In terms of driving meaningful engagement. And then on the brand side, and I constantly reiterate this to students, and it's always the thing they overlook when they create their influencer marketing strategic plans that they have to do at the end of the course, is they always overlook sentiment as a key metric. See, creators know that's a key metric. In the study, it's like, in the top 3 or 4 metrics that matter to them. But since it matters to them, it needs to matter to brands more too. To really get to that very focused level of engagement that really delights customers and keeps them coming back.
Yeah, and I just add a couple of examples. I'll touch on 3 things really quickly because I know we got to wrap here. But first, when you look at just the investment overall from our study, creator is at the very top of the list, right next to CTV, where not just percentage-wise, but where the dollars are flowing. So you're going to see more and more CTV. But really, there's a shift going on at brands. They're starting to understand this, and we're really seeing it. And that's being opportunistic. So LTK worked with Stanley Cups. The Stanley Cups were discovered on LTK. Now, they've been around for 120 years, but it was the creators that talked to each other. Now you hear a lot of people going, oh, they did this partnership or they did that. It started on LTK. You can go back and trace it.
Wow.
And, the opportunities out of that, the creators started talking and Stanley started adjusting. So, that's one example. A couple of other examples. We work with Bloomingdale's. And Nastia Lukin, who is an Olympic gold medalist, won the most gold medals in gymnastics at a single competition, is going to Paris to host the events. And she's on LTK. And we said, hey, Nastia, would you be open for some collabs with Bloomingdale's? And she was also friends with Venus Williams. And Venus Williams had a line of clothes there. And she's like, absolutely, especially for Venus. And so in a matter of, a week, we pulled together a deal where she's in Paris getting ready to be on air and be talking about the Olympics. And her get ready with me is from Bloomingdale's. And I would say a couple of years ago, and Bloomingdale's they're great marketers and they're very nimble, but big brands are setting up their departments to be that way because they know they have to be opportunistic because of the way that things break on social media. So now you're starting to see more of that. Another example of that is we work with Abercrombie. And there were a lot of, not that there weren't before, but there were a lot of women watching the NFL for some reason. I don't know why, but we know because of some famous people being at the games. But for the ones that didn't already watch the NFL, I just want to say more women were watching. Let me say it that way. And younger women were watching than had watched before. And so Abercrombie did a deal with the NFL where they had licensed NFL gear. And we were talking to them and we said, we have a lot of NFL WAGs, wives and girlfriends, the players that are on LTK. And they're like, oh my gosh, that would be amazing. And there was a lot of big name folks. And then there were some that weren't, but they have their followings. And all of a sudden you took that alliance that they created with the NFL and they had messaging on it. And you just took it to a whole nother personal level down to the team and the player's wife or girlfriend. And it just took it to a whole nother level. And again, Abercrombie is very agile, but you're just going to see more and more of that in the years ahead, in this next year, and you'll see it more so because brands will have to do it to be competitive.
Love that. Love that creative agility and being able to respond quickly. Well, gentlemen, I think we covered so much ground, but before I let you go, any final tips, tricks, takeaways for all of our listeners right now?
Yeah, I would say, obviously, everybody's looking at creator now, and they're more than dipping their toe in it. They're investing in it and they're organizing around it. And I would say, just as you're doing that, we've talked about a lot of best practices here, but just be true, like Frank was saying, be true when you're developing your creator programs. Start with what is it that we're trying to solve? What are we trying to do? You're not just trying to do tricks in the market with creators. You're trying to solve a business problem. Start with your objectives, and creators are extraordinarily creative and they can help you solve those in many strategic ways. But always just make sure you start with the objectives. The objective isn't, oh, we need to work with some creators. It's like, we have this business problem. Here it is. Let's have creators solve it. And then everything tends to write itself.
And I would just add that this is really moved from being a niche sort of below the line sort of tactic to something that now really requires a strategy and more investment based on everything that we discussed now. And a strategy is driven by insights, and insights are driven by data. So it's really, I think, not just optional, but almost necessary for brands to really be working with partners like LTK that sit on that mountain of data that can really partner with you to generate the right insight, to actually, develop the right strategy that you can test and learn from and ultimately fulfills the business goal.
Love that. Yep. Data is power for sure. Well, gentlemen, we covered so much ground, went on for a while, but it was the fastest conversation I think I've had in a long time. So thank you both so much again for taking the time out to chat with me, and to all of you listening. I'm sure you got quite a few nuggets, if not the whole conversation turned into fodder for a strategy for you all listening, no matter where you are in your creator economy journey and influencer marketing journey. Well, folks, what did I tell you? A fantastic conversation and an incredible way to close out the show. Again, at least for the time being. A friendly reminder, you can always go back to the archive on retailtouchpoints.com or through your preferred podcast player, whether that's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, or frankly, anywhere else. You know that by now. You can listen in to any past episodes, dig into incredible conversations with some of retail's brightest minds and change makers. Again, we're going to be taking a little bit of a break here, thinking of new content formats, new conversations to have, and new ways to get compelling content to your ears. So subscribe to the show if you haven't done so already, because when we are ready to come back to you, you will get the first new episode when it drops. But that's it from me, folks. Thank you again so much for bringing us into your daily lives, bringing us into your ears, so to speak, and for joining me for all of these great conversations that we're having. Your insight, your feedback, and your ideas on what we should cover, who we should have on the show have been so valuable to me. So from me and from the entire RTP team, thank you, and we'll see you soon. Keep mixing it up.